Good morning, everyone, and greetings, Your Excellencies, honored hosts, and honorable guests. It's my privilege today to be addressing you in this wonderful destination. Today, I'm going to speak to you not just as Pata, but I'll speak to you as a former scientist, a global traveler, a businesswoman, and most of all, a global citizen as head of Pacific Asia Travel Association. Most of you probably don't know, but my first career was not in travel or in enterprise, but I was a research scientist, former engineer in pharmaceuticals. I was doing pharma R&D for the #1 pharmaceutical company in the world at the time. I was with Merck. And at that time, I was doing, during one period, I did cancer research. And so this story I'm going to relate to you links to my first introduction to Sarawak. So one day, while I was on the train home, I was speaking with a colleague, a senior scientist, and she was telling me that she was traveling the next day to Sarawak. And at that time, I was living in New York. So Sarawak seemed incredibly exotic and distant. And she shared with me the reason she was going, and this was in the early stages of biotech. And she told me that she was going on this exploratory research trip to harvest samples from the treetops of the rainforest. And to me, this was incredible. This image of the rainforest being so precious, and possibly, yielding the secrets to addressing some of our world's ailments. So I remember that day, she handed me a book, and there's a wonderful book that was written back in 1988. So this was 1992. She handed me this book, and some of you may know it because it's called A Stranger in the Forest. And this was written by Eric Hansen, a Westerner who in 1982, he started this. He was really one of the, most publicized first eco-tourists, I guess you could call him, because he took this adventurous trip, starting from here in Kuching, and he trekked 2,200 kilometers. He journeyed 4,000 kilometers across Borneo, and he talked about his encounters with the indigenous people. And I remember reading about, his journey through the rainforest and drinking arak. And to me, it seemed like another world. So that was my introduction to Sarawak. And my thought there was, what a precious place this must be. To have a scientist go and forage for the solution to illnesses. And for this incredible rainforest to have this indigenous culture. And so I'll fast forward to, that was my introduction to Sarawak. Now, since then, over the last 30 years, I've had different careers. I then went to work for American Express, and I got introduced to the world of travel. And there's so many things. It's not just medicine, but it's also travel that brings so much good to the world. It brings down barriers. It educates, it gives people personal development. It creates employment for poverty alleviation. One of my projects that introduced me to PATA originally was work that I did with a charity hotel restaurant school in Siem Reap that helps the poorest of the poor. Within 9 months, they can go from a broken bamboo shack to working in a 4 or 5-star hotel. And lifetime employment, and it supports, multiple family members. So particularly in this region, travel can really be a force for good. But all of us have experienced the challenges of over-tourism. And sadly, in too many countries, those rainforests have been deforested. But one valuable lesson that I took away from the CEO of American Express, who is much respected, Ken Chenault, I worked under him for many, many years, And he would talk about the power of and. So the best and brightest in the world, need to look for solutions where you can be profitable and good for the environment. Profitable and also inclusive in terms of the financial gains. So that you can lift up your communities and create jobs, not just accumulate wealth. And I think Jack Ma once said, it's easy to make money, it's hard to do good and make money. And that's where the best and brightest should really be focused. And so those are, just a couple of the valuable lessons that I took away from different parts of my career. And I hope, and it informs my view to how we should approach responsible tourism. So it's not just about making money, it's about sharing our cultural heritage. It's about celebrating, the local food and the local ingredients. It's about bringing down barriers and having mutual learnings, between countries. And so there's a lot of great, not just good, but great that we can do through this industry. So I do have a deck, which I'll share with you in terms of, some of what we do. And part of the mission of PATA is really, it's at the heart of the theme of this conference. So our mission is to catalyze the responsible development of travel and tourism to, from, and within Asia Pacific. Now, responsible covers a lot of themes. It can mean here. So for example, recovery of the industry. We need to get people back in their jobs. We need to get businesses running again. Resilience, sustainability, regeneration. We're focusing on destination marketing, but in addition to that, destination management. We need to think about, our destinations are not just to be sold to people, but we really need to take care of them as our national treasures. And diversity, equity, inclusion, finding more ways so that it can lift up, more broadly and more evenly to the benefit of everyone, and also deliver our experiences more broadly to all walks of life. Next page, please. So these are a few of the specific projects. And you saw an earlier slide that talked about PATA is about global issues, local impact. And so we're very much about, it's not just proclamations on the stage and great speeches. It's really about how can we make impact in our communities and our destinations. And so these are a few of the themes that we'll be focusing on through the course of 2022 and beyond. So vaccine equity, this continues to be a challenge, believe it or not. Since I started a year ago, this is really foundational. And there are still many, many people who've not even had their first vaccines. And I'm keenly aware that those of us, who have privilege, we've gone into, 2 boosters already. So just imagine how far, some people are left behind. Asia Pacific Tourism Recovery Dashboard, I'll share a bit about that. HCD, Human Capital Development. We are starting to feel in this region a big staffing gap. It's not as bad as the other regions, but certainly, and the question is, people have come to realize their values and, the benefit of being able to be closer to their families, a better quality of life. How can we bring that to the travel and tourism industry? There's a reckoning that's happening right now. We need to rethink, how can we make it an appealing industry to be in again? And the other aspect of that I would advocate, which I learned very much from my American Express days, how can we bring back pride in servicing? There are heroes in our industry every day who are helping out travelers, who are supporting travelers, many times, in need, whether you're a travel counselor or you're a hospitality worker or an airport worker, there is a great service that's being done. So we need to celebrate and acknowledge that. And that's a key part of what we can do as industry leaders. Tourism dispersion, new destination marketing. This is at the heart of what PATA does. And I was really, in taking on this job, I was handed a thick history book about what PATA has done since 1951. And I was really amazed to read that one of the core projects it did in 1968 was the development and the promotion of Chiang Mai. Now, back then, people only knew Bangkok as a tourism destination. But projects like that, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were in Songkhla, Thailand, which most have never heard of either. But this is at the heart of what we do, and the dispersion that ministries are doing across the region is so important. And it gives travelers a better experience, and it drives financial inclusion, and it promotes the cultural heritage. So all around, if we come up with the right models for CBT, then this is a great thing for travel. Tourism destination resilience, I'll show you a couple of slides on that. This is a program that we developed to help destinations identify their vulnerabilities and where they can build capacity. And so it's important that, on a mass level, we educate ourselves on how can we avoid how can we help to avoid crisis like we've been through and really give the foundation for sustainability. Ecotourism, nature-based tourism, CBT I mentioned, holistic wellness and travel. We did our first wellness virtual event last year, and our definition of wellness is not just about focusing on self. It's about self, it's a community and environment. And the best models in our industry can integrate all of those three and create a great experience. Women in travel. I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm the first woman CEO of PATA, so this was not my agenda, but it's actually driven by the industry. It's driven by the need. The vast majority, 60% of the jobs in Asia Pacific are held by women, but they're also predominantly, much more predominantly in the lower ranks. And these are the ranks that we need to refill and re-engage, and we also need to make sure that there's more even distribution up the ranks in senior management. Tour local, eat local, spend local. This is my new mantra, and there are many ways that we can communicate, market, and execute on this. And sustainable gastronomy tourism. And so, as Hiram mentioned, I have my dear friend and our newest ambassador, Audra Maurice, with me. The connection to Sarawak, one of her grandparents was from here, so it's a wonderful connection. And so I'm really pleased to have her here. And the important thing is there are other ambassadors for gastronomic tourism. Of course, that's one of the top 3 reasons that travelers want to come to Asia. But the important thing that we're emphasizing is sustainable. So celebrate your local ingredients, celebrate your local cuisine. Don't feel like, when you cater to foreigners, you have to just fly everything in and cook like they cook the food they eat at home. This is our opportunity. This is part of the experience, and this is what we should be celebrating. And it shouldn't be the cheap dish. It should actually be, do it in a fine way. Do it in a way that, holds it up with pride. And I think that's, one of the things we'd love to see happening more and more across the region. And I know Sarawak is a treasure for its great food, and I look forward to experiencing that while I'm here. Next page. So I'm sharing with you, one of the first things we address as PATA is, the concern that the Western nations have had about Asia Pacific is that we're too complicated, everything's changing, too hard to figure out. And so one of the things we issue now weekly is this dashboard, and this is really meant to give, and originally it was about the COVID update and the vaccine update. We're now pivoting this to talk about all the good news that you have in opening your markets. And I was really pleased to hear Airbnb told me the other day this is the gold standard for them in terms of travel dashboards. And so this is getting disseminated to travel operators and travel agencies, in various countries. And they're using this as a handy guide in terms of, how do I navigate Asia? Next page. So our tourism destination resilience training. So this is an online training available to everyone. We've deployed it in 4 national tourism organizations through workshops, but it's available for everyone. It's 10 modules, and I would advocate, we'll give you a certificate at the end of it. And currently, we're developing a badge that we'll be able to give to destinations. So the target is really for national tourism organizations to train up their teams at the national, the provincial, and the city level. And this is really, on the next page you'll see, resilience is the foundation for sustainability. Sustainability just means maintain. Resilience means, next page. Thank you. Resilience is really foundational, and it's your way of buffering against crises and preparing and doing capacity building. And on the next page you'll see these are the resiliencies. These are the different areas that we train your teams in addressing vulnerabilities and preparing for the current future. And this is an excellent time before we get hit with large volume. And I'm a big believer that the travel industry in Asia Pacific will be even more strong and fierce. All of us are adapting. We've developed domestic tourism. We're identifying new source markets, and then when the traditional source markets come on, and with the rise of economies and destinations in Asia Pacific, I call it a sleeping dragon right now. It will be fierce, and it will be, but our challenge is to prepare ourselves and make sure that when it does awaken fully, it's in a more healthy way than it was pre-pandemic. And we're the stewards of that future. And we started off today with a wonderful crew of young children. The decisions we make today have huge ramifications for the future and the destination that they see, when they're adults. And so whether you have children or not, it's our responsibility for the new generation to create, a better world for travel and preserve our communities, preserve our rainforests, and make sure that, when visitors do come, and this is the challenge, how do we do this in a way that they can get the good from the destination, but still leave it pristine, still honor, the quality and the value of what we have so that we can retain it for the next generation. So that's so important. I would advocate that very much. And so I think with that, I've taken my time now with the audience, so I'll finish here, and I'll say that, just believe in the power of and. Think hard and consider ways that we can balance this and really, create value, create growth, but at the same time, preserve the treasures that we have here in Sarawak. Thank you.